Nothing has done.
So you're all welcome to today's session. This is the fourth in its the call. We've had 3 calls already running, and we'll give you a brief update on what has been done, and then also take you through what you are supposed to do to submit your call, and then explain the key processes involved in getting your proposal funded or accepted. We can't guarantee that your proposal will or will not be accepted, but we can tell you what you need to do so that you increase the probability of your document being accepted. Before we kickstart, I will launch a short poll, so you would answer for us to know who is here. So you look on your screen, and there are just 2 questions. Please take for us. Thank you. So that should take us a few seconds to do that. So look on your screen, and then we want to get to know the participants who are here. So you let us know whether you belong to the private sector, public sector. When we say cluster, either you belong to an association, and then the business support organizations. If you belong to a business support organization, we would also know. And then you would also let us know which value chain you belong to. We have fruits, we have cassava, we have cosmetics, and at least some of you operate in 1 or 2 of them, so we would get to know.
Are we business support organizations? Private.
A little over 50% have answered, so we're still waiting. If you've not answered, kindly answer for us. You just tick yes, public sector, private sector, you belong to a cluster or a business support organization, a BSO. And then you also let us know whether you belong to the food sector or you belong to cassava, or you operate in a couple of these ones. Okay, so this is the results as displayed on your screens. So we have members from the public sector, we have private sector 17, the cluster for business support 3 out of 27 persons who have responded. For fruits, we have 6, cassava 4, cosmetics 13, and 4 belonging to at least 2 of the value chains. All right. Thank you very much for participating, and we thank you for that. So we'll start by giving participants gathered in here an overview of WACOMP, what we do, and the details of why we are gathered in here. Okay, so I'll start by introducing WACOMP, letting you know all that WACOMP is all about. Thank you. So like I said, we will have a quick overview, and then now this is the overview. So the West Africa Competitiveness Program, as we call it, WACOMP, overall objective is to improve the competitiveness or improve the performance and growth within the industry that we operate in, the cassava, fruits, and then the mango, cosmetic sector, to enhance competitiveness at the country level, at firms level, and so that will translate into that competitiveness growing to support all the sector. We're also looking at improving SMEs and expand their quality standards, and then also bring green solutions, and then market access. At the regional level, that's at the West African and then the African continental level, we also want to enhance regional linkages and integration so that value chains that are promoted at the regional level, we're able to link up and be competitive within the sector. These days, when we talk always about AFTA, we want to be competitive as a country. The overall objective of WACOMP is to strengthen the export competitiveness of the Ghanaian economy through enhanced value addition, sustainable production and processing, and then to increase our access to the regional and international markets. So we want to add value. You see cassava, we don't want to export cassava raw tuber. We want to add value to cassava and exports. We don't want to keep sending our mangoes and pineapples. Let's send them in juices, let's send them in fresh or dry fruits, and then submit across the countries. So we want to see actors improve your competitiveness in these areas. WACOMP operates with what we call the 5 C's of competitiveness, and that is a UNIDO mode of operation. And WACOMP as a program is financed by the European Union and is implemented in Ghana by UNIDO. So UNIDO have a unique approach, which we call the 5 C's of competitiveness. So we want to promote, and please, as you listen, this is going to be the guide as you put your proposals together. Your proposals must fall within these clusters. So we have outcome where we look at promotion of dialogue and synergies within value chains through value chain strategic committees. This is where we operate. We want to see various actors collaborate and work together. We also work in what we call compete. We want to develop competitive manufacturing capabilities and upgrade SMEs through clusters. And when we talk of clusters, we're talking of a geographical area of actors working together or in the same commodity in a locality where they can work together to enhance their productivity and volumes of production. When we talk of conform, we want to increase our productivity, but we want to do that by producing goods and services that are standardized, goods and services that can be accepted across all industries and across regional barriers. And so we promote quality. We support SMEs to comply to quality, either ISO certification, FDA registration, or GSA certification. Then when we talk about connect, we want to promote efficient marketing, either online marketing or physical marketing, support through giving to GEPA, the Ghana Export Promotion Authority, and other SMEs so they are able to sell their products. Then the last C, which is the credits, and that is also what we support SMEs, linking them to various financial institutions. And as part of the project, we have a component which we are now talking about today, which is the subcontracting matching scheme. And that is all that you have to get to understand today. So as we move on, these are some of the project stakeholders. We have AGI, we have MOTI, Standards Authority, Soil Research, amongst others. Good. This, as I indicated, is the 4th call. We want to give you a foretaste. In fact, it's already been tasted, but to give you a fair idea, if you are participating for the first time, to see how the previous calls went. The first call, 3 bids were approved out of 11 calls, 11 bids received. And you see that 67% was in the cosmetic sector and 33% was in the cassava sector. Call 2, out of 21 bids received, 8 were approved, and 50% went to the fruit sector, 37% to cassava, and 13% to cosmetics. Call 4, call 3, 4 bids were also approved out of another 20, 25% fruits and 75% cassava. So again, we want to see, is it possible for me, even as a BSO or as a private person, to be able to apply to get these funds, or it's just a facade that is UNIDO people come and talk about it? No. So we want you to see how it's been done so far over the period. So for the total value per the value chain, this is what you see. We have 40% going into private entities. So far, we've disbursed in excess of 450,000 euros, 450,000 euros over the first 3 calls, and 40% went into private entities, 6% to public institutions, 27% of that 450,000 went to business support organizations, and then 27% of that funds went into clusters and networks. So if you have your calculator, I don't have to give you specific figures. You have in excess of 450,000. This is how it's been distributed amongst the value chains and the sectors that have been done. So for the value chains, 33% has gone of the 450,000 is gone into fruits, 20% to cosmetics, and the cassava industry said they are outperforming, and they've had 47% of the funds distributed gone into that aspect. Good. So now, why are members not able to be successful? Is it that the results or the selection criteria is too difficult, too stringent that people cannot get through, or deliberately we are failing people? These questions will be answered, but please listen to these and take note of these unsuccessful reasons, so that as you put your bits together for this 4th call, you will not fall into the same pits, so that you avoid these quagmires and come out and give us proposals that are fit for purpose. So one of the major reasons is that most of the bids we receive do not meet minimum mandatory financial qualification requirements. I guess at this point, somebody is wondering, so what are the mandatory financial qualification requirements? It will be answered. So just pay attention as we roll on and you will get to understand that, so you avoid that. Make sure your financials meet the minimum or mandatory requirements before you submit. 2, some proposals from single entities, organizations focus mainly on themselves, the benefit to themselves rather than to the clusters. For instance, if I have a company A, we are not in a position to build one champion over the others, but we want the company working within the value chain, within the network, to be able to draw other actors along. So if I am a pineapple processor, company A is a pineapple processor, and you apply that you want X amount to buy a filler to fill your bottles, you should show us the link that you are buying pineapple from outgrower A, B, C, D, these number of farmers, so that when we support you as an entity, you'll be able to offtake fruits from these farmers. And so the benefit is not to yourself, but the pull effect is there. Once we support you, you grow, and then others also have their fruits coming up. And then also proposals from some single entity organizations do not show clear linkages and benefits to clusters, as I have explained. Some of the proposals fall outside the scope and objectives of WACOMP. Our scope mainly, we have 3 scopes. So you don't send us proposal on yam. Don't send us proposals on any other fruits, but only mangoes and pineapple. Don't send us something on avocado, it will not fly. So your proposal should fall within the objectives of WACOMP, and we'll take you also through. And then some proposals were not clearly structured. When you read the proposals, the outcomes, the outputs, and the benefits were all mixed up. It should be such, when we have the document, please write the document in such a way that when we take it, the evaluation team takes it and is evaluating it. Even in your absence, we should be able to understand what you want to do. Because if the documents are not clear from the very beginning, it becomes difficult when we come to monitoring, because you don't even understand or it was not clear what you wanted to do. So even monitoring it becomes a challenge for you and also for us. So please let your outcomes be simple, straightforward outcomes. Your outputs, let it be clear, and the benefits also follow up. And last, we would also want to say that once you submit the proposal, we want you to attach CVs of project personnel. And we've had cases where CVs of project personnel received did not show adequate competence. If you say you are going to, you have a processing plant, you want to see the CV of the plant manager. If you say you are doing something in marketing and you are attaching a marketing CV, don't bring us a CV of somebody who the CV doesn't show adequate competence in that area. It would not be accepted. So please, these are the reasons why a lot of, I say 20 brought in, 8 received, 20 received, 4 received. If you don't meet the minimum qualification, we will not massage your document for it to fly. It must be clear so that we have value for money. Okay, so now we move on. So now, kindly listen to the objectives and priorities as we move ahead. So for the objectives, this is what you would have to do. We say that the project objectives are related but not limited to the following. 1, when you send us a proposal, you should aim at a proposal that is opening new markets, that's increasing exports to regional or international markets. It shouldn't be limited to this alone, but you should be looking at something like this. You should send a proposal where you are expressing to put in a venture or a proposal to increase the quality of products. Assuming your people are exporting or producing a particular product and certification is an issue, so you bring a proposal to help you improve the quality of the products through certification, it would fly. Increasing productivity through training and personal development. So you can drop a proposal and let us understand that you have a number of people, you have a number of actors or workers you work with or outgoers you work with, and you think that if they are supported in X or Y training, their productivity would be increased and it will kneel to the benefit of the company, it would also be done. If you send us a proposal talking about fostering intra-regional cooperation to enhance productivity and capitalize on economies of scale, it will be accepted. We also encourage cluster development and upgrade of SMEs capacity. So the cluster, for instance, you go into an area where you have a lot of gari processors, but they are not organized, or there are a lot of fruit producers, they are not organized. So you want to organize them and offtake your produce, and so you say that is a cluster activity you want to do, it would be supported. You also want to look at promoting programs which will impact in underdeveloped or disadvantaged areas. So if your project is in a particular rural area, it's a plus. If you talk of gender, you're working with X number of women and youth, it's something we want to see. But don't bring us a proposal, you say you're working with 200,000 women. I mean, some of the figures we also get, they are sometimes over and above, and it's difficult to substantiate. When you ask for figures, you don't get them. As much as we want to talk about these figures, we also want you to know that they should be reasonable and real figures. The slides will be given after, so you can listen in. It will be given, a pack will be sent online, you can download. And then we also will look at, in terms of competitiveness, you can also talk about supporting SMEs and firms in their collective efforts to improve service delivery and upgrade their schemes. What service are they delivering, and how can you better or put in measures to improve those ones? You also want to look about strengthening linkages among producers and facilitate operation in the value chains, like I've explained. So look, there are pineapple growers here. You want to I think there was a technical problem. Please bear with us. So we will continue from there. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we move on to compliance. So as I also said earlier, we would also want to bring in proposals that you want to talk about supporting your industry to improve quality, assess your quality needs, determine standards. You need some standards. You need a processor to run something possible. You would be able to do that. Okay, then the last bit we would also want to talk on, and next is about connectivity, market access, linking SMEs to high-end markets. So if you want to link the SMEs to high markets, you've identified a market that you want to link your people to, that is very much acceptable. We can look at that, can be done. And then analyzing national, international market opportunities, that can also be done in terms of benchmarking and doing some market analysis, that can also be done. Somebody says that I'm getting feedback that I can't be heard. Can you hear me, or is just a few?
I can hear you.
You can hear me, okay. So then I think it's the allocation. All right, thank you. Okay, so now we look at the rules and guiding principles. And then I will take a back seat and allow my colleague Kwame Ajekum, who is a procurement officer, to take over. So Kwame, if you can hear me, please take over and walk us through the rules and guiding principles. Again, please, if you have any
questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, all right. Kwame, before Kwame takes over, if you have any question, kindly note your questions down. The challenge is that sometimes once we start asking questions, you ask questions that's already going to be answered by the presentation. So after the presentation, we have a few slides to go. If your question is not answered by the presentation, then we'll go through the question session, and then that can also be handled. So Kwame, please continue.
All right, thank you very much, Charles. And thank you for the background information. So going to the rules and guidelines for the grants, for the fund, sorry, the subcontracting matching scheme. Now, the first guiding principle is that we are looking at things that provide proposals value for money. That means that we want you to assess it yourself, that what you'll be submitting, if it was your own money, your own funds, do you think that you would put your own money into such a proposal or venture? So have that at the back of your mind when developing it. We also look at sustainability of the proposed project. Our aim is that we don't want to see something implemented over a 12-month period, and then after that it ends. When you ask why is that so, there was no money or there was no funds to continue the project. We want to see things that even after the support from UNIDO ends, you'll be able to continue the project and increase the capacity, build on it further and make it bigger. We want to see collective benefits for cluster, which has already been mentioned. And note this, that in the subcontracting matches, there is a co-contribution, whilst we will provide maximum 80% of what you have submitted, of what you are requesting. So whatever funds amount you request for, you must show that you are requesting for only 80%, and then you will provide a minimum of 20%. But please note that the 20%, it doesn't necessarily have to be in cash. It can be in kind as well. You can use your facility, your equipment, or some of your staff time, all of those things to show as part of your co-contribution. Now, each year we launch 2 calls for proposals. This is the second one for this year. The first one was done in January, and this is the second one. And what you request would be at a maximum threshold of 40,000 euros at the prevailing exchange rates. Now, let me do a little explanation here. When we're saying this, we are not saying that the total project value that you have should be 40,000 euros. You can decide to estimate your entire budget, your entire commercial financial proposal to be, say, 60,000 euros, for example. But out of that 60,000 euros, we would give you 40,000 euros equivalent in CDs, and then the extra 20,000 becomes your co-contribution to 40,000 euros equivalent as your total budget. Your total budget can exceed that, but then we would give you maximum 80%, and then your co-contribution be a minimum 20%. It can be greater than 20%. That depends on what project you are implementing yourself and your commitment to it. And please note that we are looking that you will implement your proposed idea within 1 calendar year over a 12-month period. And note this, that your co-contribution should not be funded by another development project, especially from the EU. So maybe some of you, either private entities or clusters, may already have received support from the EU or other development projects, and you are still carrying on with those projects, and you want to use the support out of those other projects as your co-contribution. That will not be allowed. Now, in submitting the application, there's the application pack that will be provided for you that you can download eventually, but then there are 5 forms that we are providing that we want you to fill for us. The first one is the bid submission form, and it should be on your letterhead, the bid submission form. Now, so we'll look at the bid submission form and see what the bid submission form is. And please note the contents of the bid submission form. So you print this on your letterhead, you date it, addressed to the Chief Technical Advisor, UNIDO West Africa Competitiveness Program. The reference number, when you see the application pack, it is in there. We want you to put in the application, the reference number here in this section here. And please note here.
Have you opened the bid submission form?
Yes, can you see? Are you able to see the bid submission?
No, we can't see it. So kindly check. We can't see the bid information form.
Okay, so please give me a moment. Let me check on that.
All right.
And then just a month or two within the their implementation, then they come back that the prices that they had initially quoted, things have changed on the market, and therefore they might not be able to implement within the same funds that was approved, and they need to make variations. So please, when you are preparing your submission, please bear this in mind and ensure that whatever prices you are quoting, budgeting, must be realistic, but also taking cognizance of this clause within the bid submission form. So the next important form is the bidder information form. So we'll look at the bidder information form too. The bidder information form, we want to see and know a little bit about your business, about the cluster, about you, the applicant, or the proposer that is submitting the entity. We want to know a little bit about you. Sure, the form will be coming up soon, but in the form, it would ask about the background of your organization, to know who you are, what you have been doing. Yes, so this is the bidder information form. Again, the reference number will come up first, and then the date that you are submitting it. The person who completes it, their name, and it must be signed. Please, especially the signature is important to us, because we want to ensure that it is actually authorized by the entity, that the entity has authorized the submission of these documents. So the name of the bidder, your registration information, business registration, if it's Registrar General, and then you attach your business registration certificates, your physical address where the business or you are located, the general telephone number, email, website, if you have any for your business. If you don't have any websites, it's not really mandatory, but if you do have, we would like to see an overview of your business activities and your services, what you do as a business. So please describe this for us here. And then also, who is the authorized representative of the bidder, the name of the person, their mobile number and email. We ask of this because sometimes you see there was a section earlier that asked for the company information, but sometimes some will provide an email address, info@this. Why we're asking for this is because the info email address sometimes in some organizations or entities, it is more or less a general mail, if I should put it that way. And so if we need to send any response requesting for some information, it may go and lie there in a midst of bulk emails, and nobody's attending to it. So in addition to that, we want whoever is the main contact person, the email, so that whenever we need to communicate and send information, we can get somebody to communicate with and get feedback as soon as possible. So this is it for the bidder information form, knowing about you. The next one, then we are going into the proposals. So the technical proposal form. And the technical proposal is where the meat begins to, you need to work on the meat of your proposal. That is where you begin to describe what it is you want to do, how you want to go about it, how you want to implement it. You give us all these information in the technical proposal form. So the technical proposal form is coming up in a moment. But in there you see, thank you very much. So again, the RFP number, the name of your entity, it should come here again. So if the entity is Kofi Mensah Company Limited or Kweku Adjoa Cluster, it should be here. Don't say that you've already provided it in the bidder information, so it's not necessary. Please bring it here again, and it must be signed. And here to help you, we have again provided an overview of the proposed of the projects WACOMP, so that as you are preparing your proposal writing, you can be making reference and to ensure that what you are writing is in line with WACOMP objectives, the scope of WACOMP, and what WACOMP seeks to do. And that is why you have that. Then, as we scroll down, you see we want you to provide first a summarized description of your project, what it is you're doing, what do you seek to achieve. You provide us a summary of it. Then from there, you tell us how it relates to WACOMP objectives, how it relates to sustainable development goals, and then what are your expected outputs and expected outcomes. So you provide these for us. Now, please ensure that the outcomes, remember the acronym SMART, that it must be SMART outcomes you are putting here. There are things that are timely, things that are achievable, that are realistic, that are measurable, that are sustainable. They must be SMART here. So after providing this summary, now the next page of the technical proposal, then you now go into a little more detail on what your proposal is about, your proposed project, and now describe in detail what is the problem, the approach that you will use in addressing the challenge, the difficulty, the problem. If it's a challenge of capacity that you want to build, what is the capacity gap and how you want to go about it? You describe it in much more detail there below in the technical proposal. And then in that approach, we want you to attach a Gantt chart. So the approach that you will use, summarize everything after you have described it in detail and show it in a Gantt chart to show the activities and then which activity will be implemented in month 1, what activity will be implemented in month 2, so forth and continuously until the end of month 12. We want to see that.
Kwame, we can't hear you.
We are not hearing you.
Yeah, I tried to prompt him that we are not hearing him, so. So Kwame is coming, he will take over. It looks like we have issues there with the network. Okay, so I'm sharing the commercial proposal and then he will speak to the commercial proposal. So this is the commercial proposal, and with the commercial proposal, we want you to fill it and then provide us details of what you are doing in terms of the cost elements. But please note here that in this proposal, commercial proposal, you provide a summary of your cost in cedis, and the exchange rate, you see it when in the application pack that is used, and the euro equivalent.
Then you show what percentage you are requesting from UNIDO, what percentage you are contributing. Now, please note here again that in the pricing table, we want it to be very detailed. Don't submit just summaries alone. They can go against you in the assessment. So if you want to do training, for example, how many training activities do you want to carry out? What goes into the training? So don't just put training on skills or how to process, and then you say an amount of 30,000 is needed. That 30,000, what is the breakdown of the 30,000? It must all be shown, provided here. If there is not much details, it becomes difficult to do the assessment on the value for money and may go against you. So please take note of this in the commercial proposal. Now, the next one is the next one is the due diligence form. The due diligence is we want you to do an assessment of your entity as a business, as a cluster, as a business support organization, or a public sector entity. In there are some questions we ask you, and we want you to assess yourself. We will cross-check this, but we want to see how your capacity as an entity to be able to provide or implement the projects that you are proposing to implement. There's the financial aspects that we'll look at. There's the technology aspects that we'll look at. And there's aspect of record keeping that we'll also look at. So you see all this, and they are weighted. You weight yourself and rate yourself, whether high risk, significant, or low risk. And we'll show you how to do them. So as I explained, your accounting management, what do you have in place? We want to know whether you have internal audits and financial structures. We want to know what are your reporting and monitoring standards within your entity. We also want to know, but please know that though it is important, it's very important for us, but it varies from entity to entity. So each entity or proposal is assessed on a case-by-case basis. So somebody in a cluster or an association might be saying that we may not have so much information technology systems like a business may have. You indicate what you have, and when it comes, we will assess it based on what you have indicated, and then we'll do a review of what is submitted. Here we ask, are you legally registered as a bidder, and are you compliant with state requirements like filing of annual returns, or it's your certificate even expired, not active? We want to know, have you received any support from the UN in the past? Do you have any reporting requirements that you are supposed to be meeting as an entity? We want to know about this. Now, when doing this, the risk points. So if, for example, you rate yourself here 1, here another 1, here another 1, and maybe here to 1, the total becomes 4. The number of questions marked non-applicable, in that case, is 0. Total number of applicable questions is 4. Total number of risk points is 4. But now the risk rating, and please pay attention to this part, the risk rating here is not 4 anymore. You will do the total of your risk points divided by the total number of applicable questions. this rule. So if, for example, your total risk point is 8, the overall risk rating here is not 8, but it will be 8 divided by the number of applicable questions that you answered, and that will give the risk rating, and then we'll verify that. So what structures do you have within your organization? We would like to know that. Do you have an internal finance accounting person? We also want to know, do you have any training policies? We would like to know. Are you using internationally accepted accounting standards in your, as an entity, as a business, as a cluster, as a public sector? We'd like to know. And it same applies here. Reporting. What was the frequency of preparation of financial statements? Are you preparing financial statements on a regular basis? And then information technology. Do you have any IT systems in place? If you have any software or you have a backup method, as you see here, any backup, maybe onto the cloud or something, you would like to know what backup methods that you have to ensure that in the unlikely event of any disaster, you'll be able to recover your information and to be able to continue the business, because we don't want to hear that you had a disaster and therefore the project you cannot continue. So continuing, this is what we have just looked at. Now, the various components of the various forms. The next one is the technical proposal should be accompanied by a work plan, as we have already said. Now, the final implementation plan, there will be various reporting standards, requirements that will be required of you. There will be a final implementation plan, because when we review, there might be some changes required here and there. And so we'll ask you to do a final implementation plan, like an inception document ready to commence. And then an interim report will come within a maximum of 2 months from the signing of the contract. Please note this, within a maximum of 2 months. And then there will be a progress report after that, 3 months after the interim report. Please note that, so for example, if you start implementation in September, it will mean that by November, your interim report is due. And then 3 months from there, your progress report is also due. So whatever you have achieved at that stage, you provide and then you continue with the work. And then at the end of the whole project, you will provide a report. I shared it this way because the funds would be for you to start 20%. The interim report would assess it, and a second 40% you utilize it, and then the progress report. Then you will continue on your own until you finish and submit the final report, which will then be assessed and approved before the final 40% is dispersed or is given unto you. So please take note of this. And that is why we talk about the mandatory financial requirements, because we have heard cases where some along the line, they said, we don't have any money funds to be able to continue. And that is why there are the financial requirements. Please note this, when you see they receive the application pack, you will see this in the terms of reference, that successful bidders shall commence the assignment not later than 1 week after signing the contract. Please note it's not later than 1 week after signing the contract. We sign the contract 1 week, you should be on ground ready to start your project. You are not to wait. We don't want you to wait for the funds to be received before you start. The funds will be processed because per our system, most of you might be new entities, and there's a process that you need to go through to be registered into the UN system before the funds can be disbursed. It may take a little while at the start, but you don't say that. We don't want people to say, we don't have any funds to start work. And it all relates to the financial requirements so that you can start. Now, in qualifying, some of the things we look out for: certificates of incorporation, showing that you are registered, so you're operational. Do you have any quality standards as an entity, or you are working towards some quality standards? The contractual is what you see, the bidder submission form. When you put on your letterhead and you sign to it, you are accepting the terms and the contracts of the subcontracting matching scheme. The experience, as was explained earlier, that you have experience in what you are proposing, and your CVs that you submit show people who have experience. Then the financial qualification or requirements, there are mainly three of them. The first is profitability, that as an entity, you are not making losses, you are making profits. And then the second, of 1%. That you are making good profits.
Hello, can you hear me? Are you with us?
We can hear.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry, today. Okay, so we'll continue. So, yeah, sorry, we're here. So the solvency ratio, the reason why we want the current assets to be greater than the current liabilities is showing that you can easily have access to funds, and if there should be any delay in disbursement of funds, that you still will be able to have some funds yourself to be able to continue. Once you submit your reports and they are approved, then the funds that has been approved for you within the budget that is submitted, it will definitely be dispersed to you. So there's nothing to be scared about that. If I start implementing with my own money, would I be reimbursed or not? Once your proposal is accepted and approved, it means that the amount budget you submitted has been accepted. So you may be implementing, and then once you meet the requirements, then your funds will be given onto you, reimbursed onto you. And turnover, we're saying that the average turnover for the past 3 years for private entities, again, let me repeat that, for private entities, we want it to be at least 2 times the approximate value of the contract. So if you are submitting a proposal and saying that your budget is 40,000 euros, for private entities, we are looking at expecting that your turnover, not your profits, please know this, your turnover, your sales or your revenue, because you know there's a difference between the turnover and the profit. Profit is when you've taken out expenses, but the turnover, the sales or your revenue, it exceeds that 40,000 by at least 2 times. So approximately 80,000 euros equivalent in cities. That should roughly be what your turnover should be. For clusters and networks, because they are usually smaller groups and don't have the muscle like the private entities, the companies, the businesses, for them, we admit that for such cases, your turnover can be at least 1.5, approximately 1.5 times the approximate value of your budget that you are requesting. And the same applies with the solvency for the clusters and the networks. And again, we want to ensure that you have no litigation in progress, either somebody against you or for example, for the clusters, the networks, you may be doing some farming activity and the land on which you want to do it, there is litigation over the land. Some persons say the land is for us. It may hamper your ability to be able to implement your project. And that is why we want to know, would like to know this. So from this, we want to show you what are eligible costs that you can include within your budget. Now, cost of staff assigned to the action, what you are doing, the cost of those staff. So as an entity, you have administrative staff, you have secretaries, you have drivers, you have others. Some of these people may be providing some support to the entire organization in implementing your project, but they don't have any direct role to play in the implementation of the project. Those are for theirs, if you add their salaries, it will be taken out. But if you have some of your staff who you are focusing directly on this project, for them, the allowances and things, it is ineligible. Now, travel and subsistence costs for your persons. So in your project, if you need to travel within any part of the country, and there are the UN and development partner guidelines, the travel costs, the hotel costs, those ones are acceptable. If you need to purchase any equipment as part of your proposal, I know that, can I purchase some equipment? Yes, you can purchase some equipment from, you can purchase some equipment from your, as part of your project. But please note, we are saying here that it should not exceed 50% of the funding amount requested. So if you are requesting 35,000 or 30,000 euros, it means that equipment cost can be maximum of 15,000 euros. It cannot exceed 15,000 euros. And note here, let me add this. Some question may ask, I need to construct a workshop. I need to construct a space or factory building. Is it accepted? We will see that as we go on. Depreciation, rental of the equipment that you purchase under the project, that one is accepted. Consumables related to the project that you are implementing is also accepted. And if you need to disseminate information from the contract, for example, from some of the previous ones, some needed to do trainings for farmer groups in rural areas, and the rural areas, you develop your training manual, you develop the information guide in English, but then for the rural people, you may need to translate it into a local language so that they can understand and appreciate it, or even audio messages. That is also accepted. so that they can understand and be able to implement it very well. But then ineligible cost. So somebody says that I don't know how to write a proposal. I have taken a consultant. The consultant is charging me X amount to write the proposal. And I bring that cost as part of my budget. No, our response is no, you cannot. You add that to it, we will take it out because it is an ineligible cost. If you have taken any loan and you are paying the loan, principal and interest, that also will not be accepted. That you bring that in, that, oh, I've gotten funds that I can use to pay for loan I have taken from a bank. Please do not bring it. And then you made some losses from some other project or business you did, and they looking at using this to cushion yourself. Please, that is not the purpose of the subcontracting matching scheme. We have already mentioned that anything financed by another EU funds project or another development project also will not be accepted. The question that I mentioned, purchase of land or buildings. This project will not support brick and mortar, that I need to construct a factory space, I need to build a warehouse. Please, that will not be accepted. Currency exchange losses is also important here. This is why I showed you earlier in the bid information form that we require that for 120 days, you show that you have taken into account that your costs are fixed and will not change, so that in case you're purchasing something from outside, or as happens in Ghana, the exchange rate, everything we attribute to the exchange rate and say, therefore, your prices has changed. Please take note of that. It may go against you. I explained earlier, salary of some of your other personnel who are not directly engaged in the project. These costs will not be accepted. And typical overhead cost elements. For example, your normal electricity bill, the normal water bill, please note that these ones will not be accepted. If you have to hold meetings, workshops as part of activity, yes, you can hold meetings, workshops. They are accepted, but paying of certain allowances for the meetings, for the workshop, for the trainings will not be accepted. But let me put that here. So let's say you are doing, you're having a training in, say, Atebibu, and the cluster you are working with, some of them may need to travel a certain distance to be able to come for the training. Paying for their TNT is acceptable, but normal certain allowance is not accepted. So we check all those things, that if somebody is within a certain radius of the venue for the meeting, and then you pay them for, give them something because they have attended the meeting or the training, it will be taken out and you'll be asked to reimburse that funds. But if they have to travel for a distance, you show what distance they have traveled from, and they would sign to it. And then that is accepted. So please note about paying certain allowance. And honorarium or internal consulting fees, you use your own internal staff to develop the proposals, or you write your reports and say that because our staff have done it, we need to pay them some consulting fees. No, that will not be accepted. Again, we've mentioned double dipping, where you're using funds from other development projects. Again, and charge for use of your own facility. So you want to do a training, but you say, as a private entity, we have our own conference room, and we sometimes rent out the conference room. So in doing the training, we are using our conference room, but because we rent it out, we are bringing that charge in, please, that will not be accepted. And please know that the UN is not subject to any taxes. So you need to purchase some items. The tax components, don't say that the taxes and things or whatever is part of the cost. That may be taken out and will go against you because the UN is not subject to any taxes. And international travel, you can travel within the country based on your project scope. But we want to, if you say we want to attend a workshop in another or exhibition in another country, or go and see what is happening in another country, that will not be accepted. It's an ineligible cost. So in doing the evaluation, these are some of the items that we look out for. The breakdown, as I said, that your financial proposal must be broken down into details. Don't provide summaries, and that you meet the core contribution and the threshold. Mandatory requirements for the DSA, daily service allowance, must also be met. You'll be provided this information. And then in the technical part, the alignment with WACOMP objectives, the scope of WACOMP, it must that in doing the evaluation. Who are the target beneficiaries? That is why, again, Charles mentioned that some of the private entities, the proposal was focused mainly on themselves and not the cluster in which they are working. There must be some cluster. And if it is, oh, I'm just supporting 5 outgrowers or 5 people, it may go against you. So your target beneficiary should be well defined and we should be shown clearly. What is your execution and work plan? How you want to implement your projects. You want to know, and this is where the Gantt charts again comes in. After you describe it, you show it clearly in the Gantt charts. HR, showing that what facilities do you have. So you provide a little background of yourself as an entity and the CVs that the people that you'll be working with, they have the right competence. This is how it will be scored. So this is how it will be scored. We would be rating over everything 100%, but there's the pricing, which is rated over 20%. Sorry. So in the rating, the price, looking at your pricing proposal, it's scored over 20%. And then in the technical, how it aligns with WACOMP objectives, it's rated over 15%, rated over 15%. The target beneficiaries, because as Charles said, we don't want to build individual champions, but we want to build collective to reach a large number of people. That is over 20%. And your execution plan must be convincing. That is rated over 50%. So this together will give you 55% for the technical components. Management and human resources, that you have the internal staff, the internal competence to be able to implement it in the project. That is what we look out for here. And that is over 25%.
You don't give any message. They understand that. No problem for
So, yes. The evaluation process it's a very open and transparent process. It is witnessed by the European Union and the Ministry of Trade and Industry. There are representatives that are present, that are always present when the bids are opened. And when submitting, please, you print all copies of everything as a hard document, and also you put a soft copy on the pen drive. Please don't use an old pen drive. You want you to get a new pen drive for this. And the document, you must have a Word version and then PDF. Don't make everything only in PDF. There should be a Word and PDF. When it relates to the commercial proposal, for that one, it's accepted if you want to an Excel version. It is accepted. And the evaluation is done by an evaluation subcommittee that comprises UNIDO and UNIDO here in Ghana, and the head office, their representatives, the EU, the Ministry of Trade, and their value chain experts. So for each of the value chains, cassava, cosmetics, and fruits, they are experts who are part of the evaluation, and then to check everything. So what has been shown with the qualification, the technical, commercial, and the risk assessment. Please, there's feedback from somebody. All right, so continue in the time guide. This is how we propose it to go. We generally takes the cost for proposal is put out with a notice, and then you have the period 4 to 6 weeks to work on your proposals, to work on your bids, and then submit. When we submit them, we receive them here at the National Implementation Unit, and then we do a due diligence self-verification. So that due diligence form, we will go over it and check and be sure that what you have, how you have rated yourself, does it make sense? Because it's easy to see when there are contradictory information. We would do that, and then we'll begin to look at, again, the technical and commercial proposals that you have submitted. And we anticipate this will take about 4 weeks to do this, and then another week, within another week, we should then come out to say those who have been accepted, whose proposals have been accepted, and we then get back to those people. And while we have UNIDO allotment holder, this is where then we'll ask information of those persons so that we can input them into the UN system. And then a contract is developed for signing with the successful bidders. From there, then it goes on to monitoring and evaluation. So over the 12 months that you'll be implementing, we will be working alongside with you to see how you are implementing. Any challenges that you are having, we'll be able to support you and provide you feedback so that you're able to implement it very well. So at this stage, I think I hand over to my colleague Charles to give us to continue from here.
Okay, so Kwame, and I've seen a few questions. The next slide will give us, so the next slide, as we can see, we submit all the bids. So in the close of day 5 p.m., your bid should be in the office. As Kwame said earlier, it has to come in an envelope, sealed in an envelope with the documents, hard copies and all soft copies on a pen drive, a new pen drive, a new and multi. We'll start the due diligence will take place up onto the 8th. By 22nd October, we would have the commercial and technical evaluation with the EU and then MOTI as well. And then on 26th, we should have feedback after all that. Depending on the numbers that we receive, we should approval should be given by 26th. And then we start contractual issues within November. End of November, you would be contacted and given, and we hope that you start implementation by okay. So from today up until 22nd, it can be in. If you are outside Accra, you are listening to us, you can send it via EMS or via any other means that can arrive. And these documents, we've already talked about them, so I'll not go over. I'll go over the last points. Kwame, let's keep going. And the next slide. Good. So for all requests for clarification from potential bidders, if you have any challenge whatsoever, if you have any concern, you please address it to the Chief Technical Advisor, WACOMP. And this is my email address, c.saki@unido.org. And then you copy Kwame Achikum. So after this, if you try putting your documents together and you don't understand anything, don't call me, because when I explain, you might not understand. Once I get a question from one bidder, I assume other bidders may be having the same challenges. We'll respond and copy all other bidders as well. That's why I'm saying that put in your email addresses. We have a pool already, so we'll add your names and your email addresses, and we'll broadcast it to everybody. So if you have any concern, I prefer you send it to me via mail. I'll respond, and you can take note of the email address. And then, as has been indicated earlier, good. So for all the requirements, we need a complete pack. Before we begin, we need a request for proposal notice. You need a term of reference, your qualification requirements, your bid submission form, your bidder information form, your technical proposal form, your financial proposal has to be in the pack. In that brown, I suggest that you put it in one envelope, seal it properly, and put it in a bigger second envelope, well addressed, so that your document will be safe. We've had issues sometimes. You come and the documents are already torn. Those who give it to transport and the motor and Okada man will carry it from there, from STC or wherever, and bring it. Just it's in your own interest to make sure it should also come up. And so, like I'm saying, you have the bid submission form, your bidder information form, your technical form, your financial, and your due diligence. The soft copy version should include PDF version of all documents. Please don't bring us originals of your documents. Your registration forms, incorporation forms, just photocopies is okay. But we need Word versions of your submission form, your bidder form, your technical form, and then your due diligence form. And then we need Excel sheet for all other documents. If you bring us your work schedule as in your Gantt chart, it should be an Excel sheet, not PDF, so that if we are looking and there's anything we want to clarify, we can get back to you in due course. Okay, and then I think with this, we'll be getting closer and closer to, I talked about this earlier on. I really went over the reasons why bids are unsuccessful. So I think once you get a slide, you will be able, it will guide you, so I wouldn't go over it again. And as Kwame said, this is an important clause in implementation. We say that when you confirm, make sure that within 120 days that all prices quoted are fixed. This then requires that your colleagues or your finance colleagues or yourself, if you are putting your documents together, please do extensive research on prices. We all know how prices can change. We had issues after documents have been approved Then they call us and say, oh, when we check the price, it was 120, but now it is 150. If you are doing your calculation and you know that there are some currency fluctuations, be careful and then make sure that these are incorporated, because the prices and the cost bill that's accepted, if we accept, assuming we agree to give you 30,000 or euros, but it's equivalent in cedis, that's the difference. So you are not going to get 30,000 euro, that's different. So you get the equivalent in cedis, and we know how prices go. So please, let's be careful. And then you also note that once the bid is accepted, you are notified, we send the contract to you, you have not later than 1 week to start implementation. We have colleagues who would call us and say, oh, but you give me another month, somebody has traveled. We will not accept these things. So this brings us to the end of this sensitization session. We thank you for joining in. We've seen some questions, so we would go ahead and then answer some questions. If you have any question, you can unmute yourself. So Kwame, you can stop sharing. You can unmute yourself, and then you ask your question. Thank you very much. You can also type in, if your network is also slow, you can type in and then it will be answered. Kwame and I are here for that purpose. Thank you. So you can put your hand up if there are any series of questions, and then we can call you. So we are ready to roll. Yes. Estinam, please go ahead. Estinam, yeah. So Estinam first. Estinam, please go ahead.
Hi, my question is about the financial statement. Can you hear me?
Clear, loud and clear.
Okay, so my question is about financial statements. Do you only need the statement for 2020, or how many years behind do you need the financial statement for?
All right, we'll answer that one. Thank you. Yeah, we'll take a couple of questions and we'll give all the answers. Yeah. I see Yaya Abdul Karim.
Okay, my question is, can I partner? Yeah, can I partner someone?
Can you?
Partner this proposal.
I didn't hear you. You can type your question. If your network is bad, you can type your question. I only hear can I partner, but I don't get what. Okay, Abdul Mumun Yusuf.
Okay, thank you so much. My question has to do with, is it only SMEs or cluster of companies that the fund is focused on?
I think we gave the brief, we gave the SMEs, we gave the clusters, and we also gave individual, yes, so the SMEs and the cluster registered. You don't want to give money to some association that the next day you go and it's not in existence. So that is the criteria.
Okay, thank you so much.
Welcome. Okay, so this one, I see Smile. Smile.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for the proposal, for the presentation. So my question is, please, I hope you hear me.
Yes, please, I hear you.
So my question is, I have identified a problem in my village. Okay, so they produce a particular commodity and there's always in abundance. All right, so I have a proposal in a way that I want to bring all these farmers together, especially women, to help them process their produce, and then also link to an international market or anywhere. Can I also submit this proposal, or it's only for those who are already in existing or doing something already?
Okay, thank you. So we'll answer that soon. Yeah. You can now ask, and then we put all 4 questions together. Okay. So I take the 2 questions, and then Kwame would also come in when I leave something out. So first, Smile, I don't know the name. Okay, so I only see Smile on my screen. So yes, it's difficult to say that you've identified, it's a good thing, you've identified a challenge in the area and you want to solve. That's all projects are about. But again, because we want to trace who is behind it, if you are not applying as an entity, it's difficult for us to support you. So there should be an entity behind, there should be a face behind it. That's why we ask for registration. We need to enter into an agreement with a registered body, a body that can be sued and be sued, and that can also sue us, and somebody that can bring in. So if there is an entity already in place, it makes life easier and much comfortable for us to work with such an association or such a network, or if there's a small company, an SME in that area who says, okay, in my area, there's always GLAT, and then we can partner with them.
Okay, so, sorry, can I come in?
I see a hand. Is it the same follow-up? Yes. Yes, please.
Yes. Yeah, so I have a registered enterprise. So that was why I registered. I have a registered enterprise. I also have a certificate for exports. So that's why I'm asking if I have all those, I can still go ahead and submit the proposal.
At this stage, frankly, it's difficult to say yes and no. That's why I'm saying that if you've seen the requirements that we've given, if you fall in all the requirements and it's within our value chains, then you can apply. And you show all the networks that shows that, look, I'm going to do this one, and it's going to, we have women and youth in the area. We're going to work in this kind of area. You look at the sustainable development goals. Which goals are you contributing to? Is it goal 4, goal 5, goal 9? Ending poverty, creating decent jobs. If this is what you are tackling, then you are good to go.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. Kwame, have I left something?
Okay, so
I think it's Sinam's question. Yeah.
It's Sinam's own. What I'll add for Sinam is, I think your question, maybe there's a little part, and somebody asked earlier on. We understand that in some cases, some of the producer groups, they're in rural areas and they don't have the capacity on their own to either submit directly, or they don't meet the financial requirements, some of the requirements on their own. And so sometimes somebody asking partner, though we couldn't hear the full question, yes, some entities can come in and work with some of the former groups, but the idea there is that you don't want it to just be you're only serving as a consultant. Then if it is you are entering into a partnership with the whole initiative. So that is the little that I'll add for SMILE.
Sorry, please, what you added for me, I couldn't hear. I think someone's background is noisy and the network was breaking. Sorry.
We're saying that, what we're saying is that for some of the producer groups, informal and in rural areas, some of them may not have the capacity to apply on their own, or may not meet some of the requirements, and so find it difficult as clusters and networks. And so there are cases where somebody may say, can I come in and work with this producer group, this informal group, partner with them, and then submit an application? It's a yes and no. It depends on you, as Charles rightly explained. Once whoever is leading is an entity that we can enter into an agreement with, and then the project falls in line with the WACOMP scope, it is something that maybe the person can then apply. But what we found, one of the things we found on is people taking their bags as consultants or consultancy organizations. So all that they're doing is that they have submitted on behalf of an informal group, but they are not actively involved in the implementation themselves. They are only a consultancy organization, because we would do our checks and then we would see whether the people are actually involved and what is your level of involvement. So if it is in that line that you're asking, it's yes and no within the framework of the presentation provided.
Okay, thank you.
And then Esinam, with yours, the financial statements, we're asking for 3 years. So if the organization is a new organization, you can only submit what you have. I mean, but ideally, if it's 3 years, it gives us a trend to see how you're performing and how you've been on the market. But if it's a very new organization, based on the strength of what you present, it's limited though, but we would see what the evaluation team decides. It's not me, neither is it Kwame. I mean, once the tripartite team sits, they would see what you have. And then also based on the due diligence that can be done and behind the scenes, we can also take a decision on that. Okay, so I think we've wrapped up with this round of questions. May I ask if you have any question, anything that's bothering your mind, you want to clarify whilst we bring the session to a close? You can put yeah, I still see your hand up. Is it the old?
Yeah, but
yes.
I think for me, I have my own project that I'm bringing on board, and another person have the same product, and can I partner that person too in the same on this program?
Well, like I said, it depends on what you submit. As we sit here, it'll be difficult to say no, and it's also difficult for us to say yes. You have seen the guiding principles we have put in. So if you want to partner, for instance, so I'm doing X, and that gentleman is doing B, but it's the same commodity. And so we feel that if we work together, we'll be able to bring more people. So it's a cluster work. That is a unique thing. But how you package the document, that's what speaks. Who is going to be the lead? Who are we entering into the agreement with? This should be clearly, that's what I'm saying. When your document comes, you will not be here to say we are 2, and so it is this one who is doing it. You do X and I'll do Y. The document, is the lead organization? Which signature are we dealing with? Which name am I calling? If there are problems, am I calling Yaya, or I'm calling Musa, or I'm calling Esinam? So it has to be clear. That's what I'm saying. It really depends on how you couch your document, how the two of you present, sit down, read the document over the weekend. I mean, it's going to be online from the website. You can download it, go through, and then it will inform you how you put the documentations together. Okay, so I see Richard Nate, and then I see Edward Into. Can we take these 2 questions? In the next 5 minutes, we'll be wrapping up. So Richard, and then Edward Into, any of you can unmute and then go ahead. Before the 2 of you, somebody question in the chat says, I just registered a company and I'm yet to receive my certificate. Can I still apply? The answer is no, because you will not meet the minimum criteria. So if you don't have a certificate, we can't start anything with you. You are not a legal entity. You've not been registered, so it'll be difficult also to start with you. And then it says, under financial qualification, you require a minimum profit level. However, NGOs are non-profit making. How do NGOs qualify? So we'll give you an answer to this one. And then can a local NGO that want to go into value addition of cassava apply? So you see, we are not, it should be something you are doing already. So if you want to start, bring us documentations, show us your track record, how you want to go about it. So some of these questions you are asking, it's difficult to say yes, don't do, yes, do. I don't know the documentations you have. I don't know what you've done in the past. I don't know where you are located. So this is to give you an overview that yes, it's possible if you have all the documentations. We have given you the guidelines. Yes, you have to look at competitiveness, you have to look at quality, you have to look at market access, you have to look at gender. All these things must come into play when you are dropping your proposal. And so we would want to see these elements clearly being expressed when you submit your proposal. Okay, Edward Into, please go ahead.
Yeah, my question is, in case you had applied for the first bid and won, but the amount did not reach the threshold, can you reapply to take the remaining amount involved?
Yes. Yes, so I now know who the Mr. Into is. Okay. Yeah, the way you okay. All right. Yes. So within the calendar year, you can apply for the maximum threshold of the up to 40,000, and then we can give you up to the 80%. We say up to because we explained that you don't have to bring, you can bring us a project of 120,000 and we will sponsor up to the 40,000, and then you can take the rest, the 80% of up to 40,000 euros, and you take the rest and then you can implement that. So yes, Mr. Anto, if you applied in the past and you are implementing and your first threshold was below the 40,000 threshold and we gave you the 80% and you still feel you have a new idea you want to submit, why not? You are still eligible to apply.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your answer.
Yeah. Okay.
So if I may add a little, so someone who asked about the NGO.
Yeah.
The presentation. Each proposal is accepted on a case-by-case basis. Yes, NGOs by nature are not supposed to be profit-making, but NGOs are allowed to have a surplus. In this days with development of donor support, so most donor projects require sustainability. And one aspect of the sustainability is to ensure that on your own, you'll be able to continue. Because in the past, several projects, not only just this UNIDO projects, other projects, the donors will give funds. And once the project ends, then the NGO will say that we don't have any money to continue. So now there's when you're checking sustainability, you want to check and see that you are even making some surplus so that you have some funds on your own as an entity to be able to continue the project beyond the period of the support. So for NGOs, I can't say yes and no, but then you need to have a turnover that meets somewhere within the requirements, and then you submit it to be assessed. There's a whole committee that will look at it and assess it and then take a decision on that.
Okay, so Maggie, I see Maggie iPhone. We can take that and then wrap up. So Maggie, please go ahead. Yes, I see a couple of hands. Please unmute yourself and ask your question whilst we wrap up.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes, thanks for
we can hardly hear you.
But you can type it if you have a challenge.
We didn't hear you. You can please type it.
We are also involved in training programs, training programs, for production. In you and the action and looks into.
Mr. Saki.
Yes, sir.
Can I ask my question?
Just a moment. So, Maggie, we didn't hear a word. You can please type into your into the chat box, and then we can read it out. But Mr. Nkrumah, please go ahead, Mr. Nkrumah.
Yeah, what I want to know is that the 20% counterpart funding,
yes,
can it be land and building?
It can. It depends on what you'll be submitting. It can.
Okay.
But it depends on what you'll be submitting.
All right. Thank you very much.
You remember also, just to refresh our memory, Kwame indicated that the 20% can be your staff cost that you are bringing on board. So you are buying a machine, you need 20% to buy a machine to put in that building, and that is your cost that you already have the building. But if you put a machine in, you'll be able to juice or do your cosmetic product and sell and get new market and support the women. That is brilliant. So you can always do that. Okay, Citizen Dazi, that is the last, and then we close the session. Citizen Dazi. Citizen is not talking, and so
I think there's a question about public sector entities. The chat box.
The chat box. Please, can public sector entities apply? Public sector entities can apply if they are supporting somebody. Usually the public sector, what we realize, core mandates that they also submit products. And so if they're supporting an SME in a particular locality to put in a proposal for enhancing competitiveness, market access, quality infrastructure, that is perfectly can be done. But if the public sector institutions, they're already applying, unless we get something different, then based on the strength of that proposal, we can decide. But for the ones we've received in the past, it's always been already on their core mandate, and it's been a challenge for us to move into that direction. So on behalf of my colleague Kwame, on behalf of WACOMP, we want to thank all of you who joined this. If you, yes, the recordings would be uploaded on the website. We would put it on the website, the WACOMP website, and then you would have access to all the information that you require. If you visit the website, I'll just drop the URL in the chat box now, so you can copy it, take note of it, and follow within by close of the day, it would be there. We would upload everything there for you. So please look in the chat, you can copy it now. That is what I've just put there. WACOMPghana.org. So that is the website. The recordings, when you visit the website, you'll find, currently we have core 3 on the website. We're going to update the record. Recordings will be downloaded, attached to it within the next, before day ends, it will be there. You have that, so you can download.
It is messing up terribly.
Okay, thanks very much for the
information
given us.
Yes, we thank all of you. Today we've been having very terrible network, so we keep moving on and up. So we thank all of you. We would also want to take a virtual group picture.
It has been very terrible network. So we thank you. We've seen the pictures, we've seen their faces. Thank you all for joining us. It's been a pleasure having you with us. And I look forward to receiving the WACOMP team. Have a good afternoon, have a good weekend, stay safe, and then looking forward to receiving your proposals. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.